Hi guys, welcome back to the second episode, I guess, of just us having long form conversations.
For no reason, just because we want to. Those of you guys who know us, I'm Aubrey, this is Nicholas.
Yes, hello.
You guys know that
by
now. And we are usually making videos, or we were usually making videos on this channel about like van life and traveling and stuff like that.
Yes.
But we are returning after a little bit of a hiatus.
Yes.
And just coming back here with some long form conversations, sharing some things that have changed for us, just diving deeper into some things that maybe you guys wondered about, some things we just feel like talking about that nobody really asked.
No, for sure. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, this is our freaking channel. So we can talk about whatever the hell we want.
It's true.
But yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed the last one. Yeah. We talked about how we just sold our van. I would say we're entering a new chapter, which we are. But in saying that, we're, kind of just reinventing what van life means for us. Yeah. So it's not like everything changes.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a whole year where we had space away from putting the intimate details of our life online after about 4 years.
Yeah.
Am I right to say that much time? After about 4 years of, like you said, every major event being online. Mm-hmm. When we got married, we weren't online yet. And I wonder if we had got married in that phase, if we would have made a video about it.
Probably.
100%. Have you thought about that one before?
I mean, like, I guess obviously it depends on when.
What phase? There was a year. If we had gotten married, like,
in that first initial year, I would say.
Yeah, first one or
then
two.
We would have like live streamed it, I'm sure.
Yeah. I remember having conversations with some of our friends as we were all, getting traction for the first time. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about weddings or kids and just talking about like what kind of event you could make that online. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. What an interesting way to start this.
Yeah. Before we really dive in, I would love to talk about some things that have changed since the last episode.
Oh, yeah.
Our set. What do you guys think? What do you guys think?
Come on, it's awesome.
It's awesome.
You guys know it's awesome.
This is like my favorite room.
Yeah,
ever.
It's really cool.
So what we did is we like swapped the rooms. So we had like one room that was like our vibing smoking room, and then the other room was our bedroom. And we realized that our bedroom was way bigger than our other room for like vibing and stuff. And we would try to pack like a dozen people in that tiny little room.
It got hot.
Cramped. Super cramped. It was just a whole thing.
Right.
And so we decided to swap the rooms. So that was like our whole weekend.
Right.
Plus we had to quarantine because somebody we live with
Round
had COVID.
2 of COVID in this house.
Thankfully, we're vaccinated, so we didn't get COVID.
Right.
But we did quarantine.
Somehow. I don't know. But yeah, we'd taken tests. We didn't get COVID.
We got tests twice.
But we've been sort of quarantining. And with that time, we switched the rooms up.
Yeah.
And this living plant wall is one of the creations. Yeah. So I love it, baby. I think you did a very good job.
Another thing that
changed. I don't know if they can see the whole thing on the camera, but
Yeah, no. I mean, you can see a lot of it. Another thing that changed is I got my hair cut.
Wow, that did change.
Let's talk about this.
I think we need to talk about this because for all y'all dudes out there, for maybe the straight hairy ladies, I don't know, might not understand what a big deal this is, but Aubrey has cut her own hair from the, since I've known you.
No, literally, yeah.
Because no one knows how to cut curly. Let me step in as the husband. Hold on, I got something to say about this.
Yeah,
no one knows how to cut curly hair. Ain't that the truth? My curly haired homies.
Yes.
Aubrey has been talking about getting
a
really high-end curly haircut for literally since I've known her, and she finally went out and did it, and it was worth it. It is gorgeous.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited because I got one haircut literally the day before we made it official and we started dating. So this was 7.5 years ago.
Yeah, it looks cute. It didn't look this good, but it looked great.
I hated it because what I had in my head was totally different than what came out. And that's exactly what happens every time I went to like your average hair salon and got my hair cut because, those ladies just don't know how to account for the bounce, for the bounce. You know what I'm saying?
The volume.
So, the shrinkage.
Right, the shrinkage
is really what it is. So anyways, all this to say.
She's looking bad. She's looking bold, bad, beautiful. Pick an adjective.
I am very stoked on it.
Yeah. You got a new tattoo too.
And I got a new tattoo.
That's upside down, but
I got this beautiful dandelion tattoo with my sister. So that was a fun little moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot happened since the last episode.
I didn't get anything, but
Well, give us a drip check.
Drip check.
Yeah.
Thrifted yesterday.
Yeah.
Boopity boop. New Goodwill in
Yeah.
our neighborhood.
Yeah.
So thank you, New Goodwill.
We got this Ana Luisa chain.
Yeah. So
Poking
thanks
through.
to all the reused drip.
That's true.
Are you fully in reused drip? Yeah. Okay. Fully thrifted as usual. High five. That's dope.
This is the first time that I'm rolling out this vest. I found this vest at like Goodwill months ago. You know those finds that you're just like, I know this is gonna come up someday. I just don't know where it's at yet. Like at first I was like, maybe I'll turn it into something else because I just loved the pattern and stuff.
It's too cool. You're wearing it
well.
well.
But then I realized, you know what? I can wear this.
Show off
I
your
like
necklace right before we jump into the rest of the convo. Please show what you're wearing.
This is the biggest strip of them all.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So
that's like supernatural, magical drip, actually.
It really is. This is like, okay, this episode is going to be all about like what has kind of changed for us in the last year or so. One of the things is going to be talking about your name because I know you guys have a lot of questions about that.
Yeah.
Let me just like, with this necklace, we're just going to dive in a little bit into like some things that have changed and like manifested.
Okay.
I think this is gonna be good.
I like that. That was a nifty transition. Please do.
Okay.
Dive.
So this necklace or this pendant is a triskelion, which you guys probably can't see, but maybe I'll like insert a little clip of it because it's really cool.
It's beautiful.
This was like an artifact that is like 1,300 years old.
Is an artifact.
Sorry, is an artifact. I don't know why I said
from
that.
Estonia.
Nicholas was romantic AF.
Wow.
And a few months before Christmas, bought this for me because I was really into the symbol of a triskelion. And he ended up surprising me with it. It was a whole thing. It was great. Made my Christmas, even though I had COVID. You know what I'm saying? Like we were sick with COVID, but like he gave me my artifact triskelion, 1,300-year-old triskelion pendant, and like that's lit.
I'm not much of a very good gift giver either. So
what are you talking about? This was a beautiful gift.
I'm saying I was pretty stoked to pull it off. I'm a horrible keeping secrets. I'm not saying I can't buy a good gift for someone. I like will buy it and then be like, okay, the next day, like please, I've been waiting 12 hours. I have to tell you about this gift I got you. And you're like literally.
You just love sharing things with people.
Like, I think I told you like 4 times I have a really good gift. I can't wait.
Oh yeah, and I had no idea what it was.
Just because like I just couldn't help but like.
Yeah, it blew my mind. It was an incredible gift.
Thank you. Okay,
so let's talk about the triskelion though, because this is one thing that I learned as I was like really diving into some like spirituality. I would say like pagan spirituality, but that word scares people. But really, it is
pagan's a word kind of like witch or any of these other words that have just been like okay, like 100 ancestors ago.
Yeah.
They, were, or maybe, I don't know, a dozen ancestors ago or something. They were burning witches. They were so terrified. And somehow that's literally stuck around in our pop culture. And there's still like a rub. And pagan's
it really is the anti-indigenous sentiment in white people. Because what paganism is, what witchcraft is, all of this stuff is just like negative. Like, I feel like these terms hold a lot of negative connotation, but because it's like indigenous white people, like that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like witchcraft is our, indigenous spirituality.
Totally.
Pre-Christian colonization.
Yes.
2,000 years ago.
It's interesting that like you're choosing to use all these words simply because I know that you're not like Wiccan or witch or anything like that.
Right.
But it is interesting that like it's worth like kind of diving into. And this episode is already all over the place. My gosh. But I guess we're just kind of talking about like how we've come to view the world a little bit differently over the last year after our travel.
Yeah.
That's part of what this is, right? Like how does travel and seeing other cultures inform this? Which is like when you see other cultures as you're traveling about and you start to realize that like every single other culture around the world has their own ways of talking about things and experiencing their land. That's big, right? Like people that are from a specific place and land will draw religion and spirituality about that land and then exchange that with other people around the land, etc. Right. And then you kind of are like, well, what's my version of that, right? And this is the cliche of like golly, that we got flamed with when our name was Minimal Millennials, for goodness sakes. The goofy backpacker who needs to go like pet the tiger in Nepal, and wears all the little stuff from everywhere they go, and like it's easy to do because like as a white person, right, whose your kind of ethnic identity has been scrubbed intentionally, mind you, by our ancestors in order to buy into something. you feel a void of culture,
100%.
right? What's our culture? Barbecue and American Eagles and,
No, it's
yeehaw.
like the NFL. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
no, it's literally
it's corporate America. It's like a white American culture.
Yes, it's specifically an American thing, right? Phrases like this particular void of culture that so many white kids feel is a very specifically like, I'm gonna use like a weirdly like it's like an Anglo previously colonized place phenomenon. And I say that for a reason, because you go over to Europe, even people like, everyone agrees the British are white, right? For goodness sakes, whiteness just means British, basically.
It really does.
But the British would call themselves English or British. First of all, that's like the, you know what I mean? Like there's an ethnic identity even there.
Like the concept of whiteness doesn't
But you know who's white?
Europe.
Canadians, Australians, Americans, all these like colonized places where our ancestors have only been over here a couple hundred years max, maybe a lot less. We haven't developed religions or traditions about the land, or even stories about the land,
or have any intention to.
No, because like
completely erased all the people who live here.
Right? Yeah, our history has to start about 250 years ago, because if it doesn't, then we're forced to really look at some nasty stuff. Like we eradicated all the peoples that were peacefully living here, right? Or we had over 100 years of slavery before, we even had a country. So like our story of ourselves has to be very recent if we want to maintain a myth of American exceptionalism and whiteness and all these things. So like as a white person, which obviously we are, your ancestors have recently traded in an ethnic identity to buy into something. And I think that us being like, obviously all of us are going to be a mix of Irish, German, Scottish, British, all kinds of other stuff. You start to think like, my ancestors had a religion, they had a spirituality, they had stories about their land, they had mythos, they had understandings about the world that have all been scrubbed a couple of generations ago. Even like, a concept like the Triskelion that has informed the Trinity.
Yeah,
right?
so let's talk about the Triskelion, because I guess this is where this came from, is like over the last year and a half or so, I personally started going on a journey, because we both were raised very evangelical, extremely fundamentalist, like super, super conservative. And
Can you tell?
Yeah, right. I mean, we got married at 19 and 21.
Just that should be enough.
Yeah,
I was married at 19. Come on, please.
Yeah, crazy. So we've let that go, years ago, and would not consider ourselves Christian anymore. Yeah. But I was really starting to experience kind of this void of a spiritual practice, because I enjoyed prayer. I enjoyed going to church and like communing with people in that sense. And I think that the things I really connected with are still very much held within pagan traditions. But the other thing that I was really kind of going on a journey with myself last year was, what does it mean to be a woman? Which might sound like kind of crazy, but like in the spiritual practice that we grew up in, feminine identity, that's what I mean, is like not worshipped, not revered, not held up in any kind of way.
If you want to really just like plant a seed of doubt, I guess, into people who hold tightly, this is the thing, hold tightly to one unprovable version of something they can't understand, that they admit they can't understand, right? That is such a crazy thing to do in the first place. But then you just like see if someone who is a woman or identifies as a woman who is from an Abrahamic religion, you just say like, there is only dude worship in that religion. Yeah. Only dude worship. Yeah. Worship is what we give our adoration and energy into. And the only thing we're respecting here is dudes.
Yeah. Not to say that dudes shouldn't be respected.
No, of course not.
But both should be.
But the point
at
is
least
like,
equally.
Is this not okay? And let's say there was a hypothetical dude worship religion. Wouldn't you think it would breed an insane patriarchy where 100% of the clergy and politicians were dudes?
Anyone with power?
I think so.
Exactly.
Because we have dude worship.
Yeah.
Is it a coincidence that the dude worship religion pretty much only has dudes as the pastors, preachers, and priests?
And in most places, like, it's sinful if you don't.
Exactly. So all that to say, being raised in that tradition, you don't, as much as my identity as a dude, I have to reinvent that. You have to explore what it means to be like to like worship the female attributes.
See
right?
divine in myself.
Yeah.
That is really what it came down to. And so I started reading some books and studying some paganism, and I'm not like a practicing pagan by any means, but it was really interesting for me to like find new lessons, find new like stories of deities and things like that, to kind of find different ways to new language and different ways to like have guidance in my life. And so anyways, the Triskelion was like the thing that stuck out to me the most. And basically what it is 3 spirals that are all connected in the middle. A spiral in Celtic paganism, again, like I'm not an expert or anything, but this is what I learned. A spiral.
You might get schooled in the comments.
I could be, yes, and please do. I'm super down to learn, obviously. And so a spiral is a symbol of growth, because you don't grow in a linear way. You grow in a spiral, which I love. And then you have 3 spirals together. Well, now they actually symbolize the 3 phases of being a woman. So you have the first one, which is virginity. But virginity does not mean you never had sex with anybody.
Right.
It actually means a woman living for herself. So I've had sex, but I'm a virgin technically within that definition.
Yeah.
Where I'm living for myself. I don't have children yet.
Yeah.
Then the second stage is motherhood, which is very self-explanatory. And then the third stage is cronehood, which is an older woman.
I'm a crone, right?
And I'm just like a crone waiting to happen.
Right.
Like I can't wait for cronehood.
Right.
But like what's interesting is when you kind of revere all 3 of those, first of all, none of them have anything to do with men. And second of all, like they also don't have anything to do with like a woman's sexuality, or like have any way that like a woman's value
guarding that,
has to do with sexuality.
Because the way we like, let's take that the Trinity gets incorporated into Christianity.
Right.
So does a concept like virginity. But then where does that go? Because like, okay, the Celts are in the British Isles and everything. Then the English end up being the virginity obsessed people, to the point where like the first state of the United States, Virginia, was named for the virginity of the Queen. Yeah. Come on. That's a little, everybody's got to be a little yuckied out by that, guys. And when, and we were like, peak virginity worshiping was the time when like you read old Jane Austen stuff, and or maybe not Jane Austen herself, but like all that time period, it was a 35-year-old dude sees like a child and is like, I will marry her someday. And
her parents are grooming her for him.
What the hell? Literally. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but like I certainly read that shit growing up, and I was like, what? Was Elsie Dinsmore the like 8-volume book where the girl gets picked out?
Don't get me started
Am I right to say in Elsie Dinsmore that when she was born, her father's friend said, I'm going to marry her?
Literally.
Okay, right. Now let's all just like puke together about that and realize that Britain, our cultural ancestors as white Americans, and if you're an American, even if you're not a white American, Britain is still all of our like, it's the people who wrote our laws and institutions and our ethics. So like, if you want to learn why white people in America are the way we are, it's all a melting pot. But who we've revered are the freaking British, right?
100%.
And like, you know, if you're British, God bless, but like, come on, right?
Look at all the people who are in power, all the old ass politicians, all the rich ass CEOs. You look at them like side by side of old pictures of like straight up British people back in the day, you know, where like there wasn't any crossbreeding, because like the British people didn't mix with the Irish, didn't mix with the Italians, you know, all that stuff. They look the same. All all the people in power, like this could just be no, it's definitely true. Not like real science,
but when
people
like, talk
they
about,
look the same.
When people talk about their ethnic backgrounds here, they're like, I'm Scottish, I'm German, I'm Irish. You never say British because British is white.
It's assumed.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I've got a fun antidote super quick about the British. So obviously, the hot news right now is we're pulling out of Afghanistan. Yeah. Thank goodness that finally that war might cease a tiny bit, and just, you know. We look pretty pathetic, don't we?
Afghan refugees more than we are.
Yeah, well, okay. Obviously. Well, yeah. It's a disaster, as any 20-year war will be.
Exactly.
God bless. So, like, you know, obviously, as an American, I really... It's got to be almost every American is like glad this is ending one way or another.
I would say, yeah.
Except the people that don't like taking L's, but like, guys, take the L, right? Yeah. The British, however, freaking Tony Blair came out of the woodwork.
Okay, who's Tony Blair?
He was the apparently Labour freaking, if I'm getting this right, PM of the Great Britain who decided to go to war with Bush, right, to invade.
Yeah.
So he went. Okay.
Yeah.
So he comes out of the woodwork and says that Biden is an imbecile. and that he's personally like offended about it. I mean, like, I'm not saying Biden's not an imbecile. Please don't get me wrong. My point is, like, this dude personally got offended that Biden is pulling out of Afghanistan, right? And apparently in Great Britain, 50% of the population is like, does not support pulling out. The Americans pulling out. And I was listening to a podcast about this. They're like, Britain never got humbled as an empire because they just kind of went into retirement. Their kids took over the reins of the company.
Literally.
The U.S., the Aussies, the Canadian, all that. Well, yeah, but like the U.S. and the other Anglo countries that dictate the rules took over the company, and they're like, we're going to go in a cozy retirement, and they never got their asses whipped.
And the U.S. always protected the U.K.
I mean, trust me, the U.S. needs to get our asses whipped too. If you're offended by that, please.
Yeah, no,
anybody needs to get their asses whipped. Any bully needs to get their ass whipped. I don't care the bully, right?
Yeah.
But like the British went to retirement, right? Yeah. And so like we still glorify in a way that like we don't the Germans, right? We were watching freaking Jungle Cruise the other day. And there's this Reddit that we that I follow called Unexpected Nazis about like all the time that you like are just watching a movie and then all of a sudden the villain's just like a Nazi out of nowhere, right? And it's like, is the villain ever like a British colonialist? Never.
No. But like, who is the actual
an American putting a Filipino person in a concentration camp?
The Germans have this genocide, the Holocaust, right? Which is it's a genocide. Every genocide is horrible.
Horrible.
How many genocides are the British responsible for?
Right.
A lot.
So
not
when
just
you've
one.
got the unexpected Nazi, like we're watching Jungle Cruise, and out of obviously all the good guys are British, and then like are American, and then out of nowhere the Nazis pop up in a freaking submarine in the middle of the Amazon. You're just like, the Nazis or what? Even the Nazis are the World War I Germans, right? Yeah. And it's like, damn, dude, like we really chose like, please, obviously you're not going to get this wrong unless you try. That we're not in any way saying that the Nazis aren't any worse than anyone else says. We're saying that like every other country is too.
Well, the countries, the
other imperialist countries, the other colonialists. Mm-hmm. If you are going in, interfering with another democratic country and rearranging their politics, anyone agrees that's wrong unless you're the one doing it. Right? Exactly. I mean, come on. How do we get here?
We were talking about pagan spirituality and then somehow got to the British and colonization and all that.
Golly, that was a real rabbit trail.
Well, we really are just like, I think this episode is very much just like
stream of consciousness,
like letting you guys into all the conversations we've had. Yeah, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of conversations that we've had just like this one, because I feel like the last year and a half, a lot of people, especially in the U.S. and a lot of white people probably specifically, are kind of going through a little bit of transformation, a broader understanding of what the world is like outside of our kind of protected bubble that we and our parents and grandparents and other ancestors have been living in for quite some time.
So I think we can like steer this back on course, but like also stay off course at the same time.
And this really is going to play into your name too.
No, I know. We're going to save that because I want to talk about that. Yeah. And let's talk about first.
Yes.
This word privilege.
Yeah.
Are you triggered?
I know I was.
First time that I was ever called privileged, like directly, was through YouTube. Yes. At least in like mass.
Yes.
Was through YouTube.
This time that you're talking about, I kind of want to like talk about what was going on at that point.
Do it.
So a couple years ago, I think it was maybe like a year or so into our channel, starting our channel, we were getting a lot of like negative feedback. We had Dave 2D making videos about us and telling everybody that like we were scamming people. He was calling us trust fund kids, rich kids. I mean, we were getting that already, like the whole trust fund kids thing. And it's interesting like looking back on it now because at that point, we were babies. We were like 20, 21 years old and being called trust fund kids, being like, no, we worked for this. And like, what? Our career was like a year deep. You know what I'm saying? Like we worked so hard.
2 full years of a 9 to 5.
Oh my God.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely did trigger us a lot because we felt like, you know, we're making big sacrifices for this lifestyle. And we were, and our parents weren't paying for the van that we got. Our parents weren't, you know, but we did walk into jobs where jointly we were making close to $100,000 a year, like right out of college.
And this is the thing, right? As a white person, that like, even when we shouldn't even caveat these things because like, here's the reality. Like, we were both raised in bubbles, but the reality is no matter what bubble you're from, that bubble will then supply you with access, right? And so like we, you know, finish up our schooling, and then like you said, we both get opportunities at these companies, and like, you know, it's sure it's like a little bit bottom of the totem pole, but here's how I'm going to give you an example of like, at least in my mind, how I told my story to myself versus in the last year, how I see my story.
Okay.
How I told my story to myself of my first real job was I got this internship making like $10 an hour or whatever, basically doing like setting up the salespeople for closing jobs, right? Yeah. Whatever, just making calls. And within about 4 months, I just kept going to my boss and being like, hey, you know, I want to be one of the closers, which made like big money. And then he would, you know, kind of put me off, whatever. Yeah. And then about 4 months in, I just walked in. Again, I'm telling my story how I used to tell it right now, or to myself. Yeah. 4 months in, I walked in. I was like, just give me that job. And he said, all right. And we put the pen to paper, and boom, I just demanded my way into a job where I was making $60K a year.
And that's what you're supposed to do. Now it's like, you're a hard-working man.
If anyone
got your job.
And if anyone doesn't just get themselves a raise, in my mind, I'm over here just being like, all you got to do is boss up a little bit. Exactly. All right, now, that is the cringiest shit of all time. And I'll tell you why. Because this is a little bit more fucking realist view about how the world works. I am raised in an evangelical household that unless you're a Christian, unless you buy into this set of morals, and you're separate, you know what I mean? Yeah. Unless you agree that like the white British morals are the overall, the universe's ethics. Yeah. If you agree with that though, you get buy-in, right? And so like I get all these connections through there. I get this job at this Christian company basically, where there's a lot of older white men there who are looking for younger white men who they want to raise up and groom and mentor. Yes. Right? And this word mentor. I mean,
you had like my boss coming and trying to mentor. Yes. You had probably like half a dozen men probably being
it's so interesting because like
seeing themselves in you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And mentoring is this word that like when I was growing up, it was everything. Find yourself mentors. And what I realize now, that is the most privileged shit of all time. What that means is like find successful older people that see themselves in you. Yeah. And I remember like...
And want to give you a job making like twice as much out the gate as literally anybody else in any other community is able to make.
Like female counterparts did not get a raise out of their $10 an hour job who were absolutely as or more talented than me. That's just an example of like the only reason I got that job was because I had a white male boss, presenting white male boss at least, who saw himself in me, was kind and generous, and like was willing to trust me with something because also his white male boss approved it because he saw some potential there, and then his white male boss he knew would give a thumbs up. So the entire white male chain said, "Yep, let's find our white male kid to mentor." Yeah. They chose from 1 or 2 or 3 of us that were the option. Boom, there we go. We'll give you your shot. Yeah. And that is the story of how I got that job. Yeah. Literally, it like, wow, okay, I'm going to be proud of my white maleness. Right. I'm going to be like dapping myself up. Oh, look at you. You got that job because you were so white and male. Come on now. Yeah. That's privilege. That's what it is. Yeah. It's access. It's connection. Exactly. And like, if you haven't seen that before, like we get to know a few friends who aren't white, aren't male, aren't, you know, whatever, aren't Christian, aren't evangelical. And you start to realize like, oh, you're not even getting into doors. You're not even having conversations. There's no one there to mentor you because there's no one in a position of power.
Dude, it's so hard for me because I feel like such a fraud sometimes. I'm just going to come out and say it. Sometimes I feel like that because we built a whole brand. We built a whole like business model essentially and a whole like lifestyle. I mean, everything about our life was traveling to other countries and doing like culture tourism. Yeah. And in a sense, like spreading the idea, like it's weird because like I feel a little bit like maybe we were contributing to like making other cultures, especially like indigenous cultures, black and brown cultures, almost like commoditized in a way where it's like, hey, come see these people. Hey, buy their embroidery. Hey, do these things, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, maybe that's still dehumanizing people, even when we thought we were saying, you know, come to Mexico. Mexico's awesome. Mexico's not dangerous.
Okay, yeah. I had a wake up call about this.
Yeah.
Because like in our guts, I think it's a lot of all of us, especially the white kids here, who are just going to be like, no. They like people open themselves up for business, whatever.
Right.
I remember we were in Mexico City filming a vlog.
Yeah.
And I was just walking down the street capturing the scenes.
Yeah.
And as I was like filming the stands, there was this woman who was begging, and she was in my shot.
Yeah.
And then she just started like yelling at me to like, don't take picture, like no picture or something. And I was like so mortified, embarrassed. Right. I was like, oh no, like I was not trying to like show poverty of Mexico. No, I want to show how great Mexico is. But it was like, it hadn't even come to my mind really that like they're like the people that we were interacting with also functionally kind of become props in the video.
Yes.
And like we would never, I'm glad we made those vlogs. The travel is so formative in this new chapter now. We would never go make all those vlogs again.
And it's weird too, because like we were very immersed in Latin America. I mean, Latin America as like one big thing. Obviously there's so much variety and diversity within that, but like we were out of the country for a solid year and a half. And I remember when we first got to Mexico, there was a lot more like, hey, let's film, you know, like like these kids are cute and like that kind of thing.
The vlogging got harder and harder as it went on.
Oh my God, it got impossible. I mean, like I wanted to like leave South America before COVID started, because I was like, I don't want to make money like this anymore. Like this doesn't feel right. And like I was constantly trying to figure out, where can we go away from everybody and make sure we are the only people in the shot? Like
let's go to the middle of Patagonia and ride a horse without anyone around, because that we can feel ethical about showing.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not going to put the camera on kids.
Yes.
I'm not going to put the camera on people. I'm like, we're going to talk to people. We were hanging out with people, you know, like we had friends in like literally every country that we went to. And you know, we like that was there, but I didn't want to put them on camera.
Mm-hmm. And for some of you who are watching who are maybe more mature than us at the time, well, I'm sure, but you know, had a more mature perspective on this, and it could have rubbed you the wrong way. That makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And there's probably some of you who hear this and just feel like we're like making much ado about nothing. But like, let me tell you, as the individuals who are doing who are like doing this, right? Like we do have a lot of responsibility for what we put out, and like nothing like this is great right now. Obviously, we're just having an honest conversation with the people that engage with us and that we love chatting with and love hearing from. But I just got to the point where it was like, it's easy to tell yourself something is not exploitive, right? Because you want it not to be. Yeah, you know what I mean? And I would rather err on the side of not being exploitive, simply because everything I was groomed for and told growing up that was okay were the jobs that were exploitive. Yeah. Being a landlord, being like big in, finance, like in the stock markets or whatever, being a lawyer or a politician, really. I mean, like any of these things that I really saw myself in when I was young are areas where, generally speaking, your goal is to...
And on my end, what I was really groomed for was white saviorism. Huge.
Go start an orphanage somewhere.
Exactly. Like, so I had 4 adopted siblings from Liberia, and so that was my big formative thing growing up. Was just, I was 7 years old when my first set of brothers came, and then 10 years old when the next 2 came. And so I like was myself, like I was cognitive, like I have all these very formed memories of all of those things going on. And so by the time I was 12 years old, my plan was to go to Liberia and start an orphanage. And I had people in Liberia connected to my parents who were like, hey, I have this plot of land for you. And I knew I was going to be in nonprofit work. I was going to be helping. I was going to be volunteering. I was actually like helping homeless people. But there's no... White saviorism does not actually fix any problems. All it does is hand somebody a sandwich. It doesn't like give somebody a job.
So you know what I mean? Feel good about yourself.
Exactly.
I remember the missionary trips I was going on in high school. The second one, I went on 2 to the same place, to Myanmar, and also was really considering being missionary there. I mean, before like we met, my plan was go be a missionary in Myanmar, and I was all connected up for it too.
Yeah.
So like, I remember the second trip though, it started to just seem odd to me because like, literally over half the trip was tourism. And even when we went to like an orphanage or something, we'd come in, the kids would play us a song they prepared. We're like, oh, look how cute and special we are. Awesome. We do some face paint, we give out instruments, and like, that's great. Okay. There's a way to do this right. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be cultural exchange. Yes, there should.
Or that there's not good intentions behind a lot of this.
Or that some of it's not doing good. I'm not trying to put a judgment on anyone else's work per se. However, in my own life, I've done many things that felt to me like they were for the service of others, but in reality, were at least the trip that I went on. We went to a freaking beach resort the last 2 days, and we got super cheap massages on the beaches of Myanmar. And we were on a mission. I'm sorry, but just quit playing yourself. Just say that you're going to do some humanitarian work, and you're also going to enjoy yourself, and we can just pay for that. Right? Yeah. I just like not some holier than thou bullshit about like we're coming to whatever. I don't mean to get strong about it. I'm not condemning missionary work as a whole at all.
I kind of am.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're going over to, I'm not condemning all
the people who engage in
humanitarian work under the umbrella of mission work. I'm not saying it's all the same, but I will say that like if you're going to somewhere with the intention of bringing your wisdom, your knowledge, your swag, let's go just make them more like us.
Yeah. It's just
that's like, colonialization.
I don't condemn. It's like this. I don't condemn people in the military. I thank you for your service. However, I do completely condemn imperialism and the system that you guys are engaged in.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
That's the same with missionary work. Is like I condemn the model of like we need to go save these people and tell them about our God and our religion and our thing. And under the guise
if they want the rice that we brought,
exactly,
you gotta admit that we're wrong the whole time.
But I don't condemn the people who, with very good intentions, a lot of times, mostly high schoolers, a lot of times, going on these trips who are being told that this is the way to help people. Like I don't condemn people who go on those things, but I do condemn the system. For sure. Right. Yeah.
So, interesting. Okay. I think this is probably about a good time to go to the main point we want to talk about, which is my name change from Christian to Nicholas.
Yes.
Now, after hearing, first of all, let me quickly clarify here. It's not a name change. My name is Nicholas Christian Matney.
Nicholas has always been your
Christian
name.
Matney. Yeah. So I went by my middle name of Christian.
Yeah. And that was by your parents' choice.
And of course, by my parents. I've always gone by it. There was only one person growing up who called me Nicholas, Mr. Nick. Shout out to you, Mr. Nick, legend of the game. Cute. He's the best. But anyways, I always went by Christian and love the name Christian and still love the name Christian. I'm not. I just. It might seem on the surface, the change from Christian to Nicholas, and I know a lot of people in my life and in my community who know me well, who identify as Christians. This is how they saw it. Many of them. That it was like a big rejection. Like, I'm not associated with this thing anymore. I'm throwing off the yoke of Christian and I'm taking on a new name. And like, I see why that would seem that way. And to be honest,
within the context of everything going on, Christians were up to some bullshit when you made that swap.
Yeah.
I think Christians were, at the end of last year, seeing the pro-Trump total fascism, nationalism that a lot of evangelical spaces were completely consumed with, and maybe a little bit nervous that your change was because
nervous.
They were a little bit like, we're kind of up to some bullshit. What's going on? And now you change your name you start going by Nicholas, and maybe it has something to do with us, kind of a thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, people in my life might have thought they could have played into the cause of me. I hadn't even thought about that. No, okay, let me clarify, because it has nothing to do with it. Yeah. Even when you say it might have something to do with it, that's just...
I just think that maybe it was a bit of projection.
No, it is projection. And like, it has so nothing to do with it. I hadn't thought about that. But like, it is projection. That makes sense. Okay. So like, if people who are Christians who want to represent Christ well in my life, then they see someone, one of the kids of the family, whatever, deciding to not go by that anymore, they might say like, oh, like, it's a check, right? Okay. I see what you're saying, and that there might be truth to it, and that I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. But the reality is, Christian means follower of Christ, and I think you could debate what it means to be a Christian. But the reality, that's what Christians do.
Yes,
Christians debate what it means to be a Christian, just like liberals and leftists debate what it means to be a real freaking leftist. It's all protectionism of your identity, or a communist debate what it is, gatekeeping. It is right, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Christians debate what it means to be a Christian. If you're not a Christian, it just means people who agree to the set of ideals espoused by Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
whether real or mythical, doesn't matter. He espoused some ideals. Yeah. And if you're a Christian, you try to follow them. Yeah. So by introducing myself as, hello, I'm Christian, I can't even tell you guys how many times in my life I got the response, and are you a Christian? And then it'd be like, yeah, or sure, or whatever. And the older I got, the weirder the response got. But like, what a weird, so basically it's like introducing myself by being like, hello, or at least my background is that I follow the ideals of Christ. And the thing is, even if Christ's ideals are mostly ones that I agree with, now the dude was a hell of a racist. So like, he said Samaritans weren't even worthy of dogs licking at his feet. So any of you that want a perfect Jesus, I'm sorry, let's get into racist Jesus, but we don't have to go there because 95% of what the dude espoused or purportedly espoused, I totally agree with. And I'm like, hell yeah, dude. Like, stand up for the ladies here, stand up for the lepers here, like whoever it is, like, let's go. But I don't need to be associating myself. Like, I don't feel like it's me. If I'm just like, hello, I'm Christian, there's no identity there. Yeah. My whole identity. When I was growing up, I didn't have a sense of myself. I literally didn't have a sense of myself because like I was nothing. I was told I was like nothing but like a follower of Christ. Yeah. Right? That's literally all I was. So like if I'm saying like, hello, I'm Christian, my literal name is Christian. So what I am, the totality of what I am is a Christ follower. There's no human inside of that. There's no identity inside of that. There's no person there. Especially when you're being groomed for positions of power, for leadership in some kind of way. I mean, like the thing that really blows me away sometimes, because I say I was groomed for white saviorism. We both were totally groomed into white saviorism. And like when you were on one of your missions trips or whatever, when they like had you go up and preach in front of a bunch of adults as a 16-year-old? A bunch of times. Like, we should touch on that because also I'm the oldest of a big family. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. I look a little bit like white Jesus.
No, and this is the other thing too. Once you grew out your hair and you look like blue-eyed white Jesus, everybody...
Remember when we went to your grandparents' church and they asked if I could be Jesus in their pageant?
Yes, all of these old white... very kind, cute old Christian Southern people. Ladies. Yeah, they just...
Jesus was white for sure.
Exactly. Oh exactly. And it's so funny because those same people are like, why are you growing out your hair? Like, are you trying to be a girl?
But can you also play Jesus in our pageant? No, yeah. I mean, like, I just presented, especially as a clean-cut little kid who was like a conservative at the time, of course, because everyone I knew was, who was a... super square, who, had super strong ethics that he held to, was an overachiever, all these things. Like, I really fit this mold that people were trying to groom into. And so on my first missionary trip I ever went on, and on my two that I went on, I was literally, as a 16-year-old, put up in front of a group of refugees. These were Karen people in Myanmar. So the military junta there had basically persecuted them for being an ethnic minority. I mean, the story I was told was because they were Christians, but the reality is, just like the Rohingya or the Uyghurs or whoever, they're an ethnic minority that like doesn't fit with what the main group wants, so they persecute them. Yeah. So anyway, these people had suffered atrocities I can't even imagine, right? I remember stories like they were missing hands, eyes, literally. Yeah. The kids who are my age had grown up 15 years in a refugee camp, right?
Wild.
Dude, beyond wild. That word doesn't even start. A group of people had their pastor crucified in fucking front of them and then had to hide for a month in the jungles, right? God. So I hear all these stories, things I still can't, but like at the time, 16 years, I can't even like begin to comprehend. Yeah. And then I'm told, now pick a verse and preach on it to these people, right? So I go up there with all my knowledge and wisdom and I deliver heat, right? And I felt so good about it too.
Do you remember what you said?
That's a good question. I remember I preached on a verse from Romans.
Oh, I love that.
I mean, I don't know. I'm
sure that it probably was nothing.
Hey, shout out to this mission trip because there was a dude, as I went and fucking preached to try to convert people, because the whole goal, we went to a leper hospital, a literal leper hospital with actual people with leprosy in it. And we went there to talk to them and preach to them, which is like, which in a sense is like, yes, go to a leper hospital if you can. Yeah. But like, we just want there to be the lepers in the Bible that Jesus preached to, so we went and found ourselves some fucking lepers to convert. That's crazy. There was a Buddhist monk that had leprosy. And we were like offering rice. And again, think of how insane and coercive this is. We're like giving resources that these people need. Yeah. And like someone, a Buddhist monk who prays with me is doing it out of respect for me.
Right.
It's saying you're bringing your tradition and I want to engage with it out of respect for you.
Right.
And the story that I tell is that he gave up his life pursuit of his background over the heat that this 16-year-old had just brought. Right. Ooh. And I remember we had
sorry, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah. Also, the last thing I'll say about the trip, we had this missionary, this translator with us. Oh my gosh, I wish I could remember his name. Awesome guy. But I asked him, are you a Christian? He's like, no. I was like, why the hell are you translating when we're like talking Christian stuff?
Trying to evangelize Christianity.
And he's like, look, dude, like, all these people really do need help and resources and y'all have them. So like if we're doing good for these people, then that is good enough for me. I feel fulfilled. And I was like, whoa, what are you? Yeah. And he's like, well, I'm both Buddhist and Hindu background. He was a person from India who was like now living in Myanmar. And I was like, yeah, Hindu, Buddhist, that doesn't even make sense. And I think I literally walked away giving him a book about Christianity, asking him to read it. That was my last interaction I ever had with him. Who I considered a friend, which is like now I look back, of course, and I'm just like, oh my God, how young and little can I be? But literally
he taught you so. I mean, he left an imprint.
Maybe more than like few other people in my life have. Yeah. And just like sitting with, okay, this is a person who I love, respect, who has been working with me, doing good, who has been a brother.
Also been respecting you.
Has been respecting me tremendously.
And respecting your differences from him. Total respect.
Absolutely. And now can look at me and respectfully just say that he is willing to. And I am told that I have to convert him to be there with them. It just something didn't quite add up.
Well, and this is white saviorism, right? This is like you go to a leprosy hospital and all you're doing is having them pray the prayer and like giving them some rice
from these people.
Well, and besides that, because like, also asking white people have this whole like, we need to learn from people who are suffering because, we don't have any suffering in our lives.
Complex
so like, so like maybe we don't need to ask them about the suffering.
Maybe we just need to go have a fucking conversation.
Or maybe we need to not, spend thousands of dollars on plane tickets to go over there and instead like invest in medical supplies and send, actual doctors or something. I don't know. Like find a way, if we actually care.
We're going to get a lot of heat for this conversation.
Yeah, it's probably true. But like
I'm fine with it, but I want to clarify, we're not like asking for heat here. This is like our experience informing this conversation. Yeah. We're not trying to say things on the world, but like this is so true of our lives.
Yes, because both of us grew up in these extreme bubbles. Yeah. Evangelical, Christian,
homeschooled.
Wealthy, homeschooled, basically segregated. Yeah. I mean, the only people of color in my life were literally adopted.
Pretty much same.
Literally
up until I was 18.
Adopted. Yep. My brothers and many friends. Yep. Those are the only black people in my life. Literally, are people who were
hundreds
adopted.
And hundreds of people. We had I had two. Yeah. We called them Puerto Ricans as a joke because they were like just a little bit Hispanic. I hope that's not like that sounds bad, but it's pretty funny.
Know. I mean, they were
like quarter Puerto Rican, but like that just goes to show you how fucking pasty white my couple of hundred people who were part of a co-op. We had a big old community with 2 Puerto Ricans, and it's like. My God. And a couple of adopted African kids. Yeah. No African Americans, no cultural exchange.
Who are just being treated with the most anti-blackness possible. Like, that is definitely my experience.
Oh, yeah, that's yours.
Yeah. But obviously, we don't need to go into that. But anyways, no, but like white saviorism, this is the thing. It does not try to fix a problem. All it does is say, I want to feel the benefit of going in and helping with my life and my resources.
The guilt assuaged.
On my terms, Yes. So, anyways, do you want to talk about...
let me I'll tie this up with the name.
I do have a question for you.
Please.
Because, when you first made this change, we very much were like, in one video at the beginning, we're just like, hey, by the way, I'm not going by Christian anymore. I'm going by Nicholas. Right. And there was no conversation about it. There was no like big announcement.
I think I was also at the place with the internet where I didn't give a fuck. I was just like, I don't need to explain myself. Yeah. And it bothers me that someone would say that I have to explain myself.
Yes. That's a whole other conversation. I was just
at that point.
I'm sure that we'll get more into that. But I do want to talk, I want to ask you, you've now shared about what went into the decision to go by Nicholas instead of Christian, but what was that whole process like for you? And what was easy and hard about it, and what surprised you about it?
Totally. Well, I would say that Nicholas is a family name also, in that my family is Greek, or my mom's side of the family, and my great grandfather is an immigrant over here, has this whole fun thing about the name Nicholas, and like it's always meant something to me. I've always had a story about it, and then I've always felt like Christian didn't have a story. It was just like a brand I was given to go lead forth into the charge. But like probably being an oldest too, I never really considered that I ever could do anything about it, like change it or just start going by something else. Yeah. And then we were with some very dear friends of ours, visiting them, and my friend Bree, who I just love and respect so much, she has a real talent for just seeing people like the core of someone rather than the whole facade, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Both of like our friends who we were with, Matthew and Bree do. And she basically, I was telling them about my story of my first name, I believe, and I was telling them that I was uncomfortable with the fact that like now I'm just stuck forever going by, something that I just don't buy into. And she was just like, well, what if we try this weekend calling you Nicholas and just see how it feels? And I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe I hadn't thought about it, but like please do. And then we had a moment a couple days later that like I was across the street and y'all were yelling Christian to try to get
I was yelling Christian.
Aubrey was.
And then Bree was like, Nicholas. And you immediately...
Boom, popped up. And it was just like a lot of things had shown this that like, I don't know, it immediately felt amazing.
Yeah.
And so I came home after that trip with a whole lot of confidence being like, oh, this is freaking awesome.
Easy.
Like, easy piece of cake. I'm going to go by Nicholas. And then I immediately had multiple family members, people we were in business with, and friends who flat out refused to call me anything but Christian. And it was like, made me super self-conscious, and I'm kind of just getting over that now. And then, of course, on the internet, it was 10 times worse because now we have people making videos about why is he changing his name and everything. It's just like, oh my God, like, why do you care? Like, why this is such, but like looking back now, I'm still close enough to this that it's like I don't feel like I have true perspective on it yet, but I have a tiny bit more than I had a year ago.
Yeah.
When I made the change, I guess it's been about a year now. It's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, it is wild.
Feels great though. I mean, it feels so natural now. But looking back, I think that what was interesting and noteworthy about that is like this is something that means so little to anybody else.
Yeah.
My name means nothing.
Yeah.
Right? But it means everything to me. It's how I identify myself. It's how I know myself.
Yeah.
And I was realizing like as people didn't call me my name, I felt like invisible. I felt like they didn't know me. And it was like this also a moment of understanding my privilege in a new way of being like, I've always felt people noticed me and gave my voice importance and like listened to me. And this is the first time where people like I'm requesting that something that means something to me and people are flat out refusing, not showing me respect. I was like, wow, a lot of people feel like this from moment one. Right? Never have experienced the respect they deserve. And then it was also like, oh, this is interesting. Like me changing my name threatens all of these people who feel like I just left the baseball team and changed the jersey color and they're mad. Whoa. Yeah. And like it almost reconfirmed like, wait, this is why I'm going by something else. Not because I hate the name Christian. It's not that. It's because when I lead with Christian, the people who identify as Christians say, okay, he's on our team. He agrees with the ethics that I fully disagree with.
Yeah.
You're not even Christ ethics as much as your damn ethics, you American evangelical. I disagree with you on literally everything. And so it just felt like Nicholas almost is just like, or Nick, it's just a name.
Right.
It's just a name. And it feels so good.
It's not like embedded with power or with like any kind of connotation outside of Nicholas is just your name. Like that's it.
Yes. Yeah. And it feels a little less noticed. It feels a little less strong, but it's like, oh, that's so good. Gets me out of the ego. Gets me out of the feeling like everyone needs to listen to my voice, all this other stuff. So
very interesting.
Anyways, that's the reason. And, anyone in my life, I will say that like, if they call me Christian or they refuse to not, then what that really says is that they're holding on to a version of me that's my younger self that they wish was still around rather than like Nicholas, who's around right now.
Yeah.
And that tells me a lot. You just kind of showed your hand. Like instead of taking it personally, I'm trying to start thinking about it like that. Like, okay, you kind of just told me that you're uncomfortable with whatever I've been up to recently. You're kind of wishing for a previous version of me. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Rather than be like, why won't you call me when I want to be called? Or whatever.
Right.
But
right.
Anyway, that's about it. Nicholas it is. Or Nick. Or,
NIC.
Posty or whatever the hell. I got a lot of things I go by.
Right. Just not Christian.
It's one of my names, but hey, I ain't leading with that no more.
Yeah.
Throw it in the middle of the names, right? Put it as a middle name back where it belongs.
I mean, yeah, like middle names are kind of low key invisible. They're just like for us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's so true.
It's just middle names for our pleasure.
Yeah.
To be enjoyed by
I kind of love the fact that I went by my middle name, though. That was a nice little gimmick.
Yeah, right? And
yeah,
then you changed. That's kind of cool.
Kept it in the middle. Shout out.
Honestly, let's normalize people changing their names. We've had multiple siblings, multiple friends who have started going by different names in the last year. And I think the quarantine, like the pandemic in general, maybe helped that because our circles got smaller. So it was like, now you only have to tell like 15 people, you know, for basically your daily use, your daily community or whatever to be calling you a different name or whatever. So it's easier than maybe it was before. But I think it's cool. I think it's cool. Like I identify.
Everybody go by what you feel comfortable as, for God's sakes.
Exactly. People. I mean, yeah. I think people should be able to do that without anybody throwing a fit. And you know what? Like we should all get better.
To be able to do it. Like,
we should all get better at changing, like being willing and being comfortable to like allow people's identities and to change growth, and growth. Yeah, exactly. Cool. So like I think my brain has gotten much better at changing people's names, like what they go by, because multiple people in my life have done this, or changing people's pronouns.
Right. It's accepting that people grow and change, and like it's not holding on to a version of someone that you need for your own self because they fill a hole within you, or you know, some dependency,
or it has something to do with you. It doesn't.
Right.
It just doesn't. So, well, guys, I think this brings us to the end. In the next couple of episodes, I don't know which order yet, but they're going to be kind of juicy. So
I think that like the next one, most likely, will be maybe driving down the privilege road a little harder by watching some of our old videos and seeing if it makes us squirm in our seats.
Yes, it will. It will. But it'll also be really funny. I think it'll be some cute comedy relief.
I personally believe that you always cringe the hardest at yourself of 5 years ago. Yeah. To me, that is the right amount of distance where more than 5 years, you're just like, oh, look at that little kid doing their thing.
Yeah.
Less than 5 years, you're a little bit too close to it. You still care too much.
Yeah.
5 years, you start to be like, what even was I doing? And really, like, it's kept up with me, right? I've had times of being embarrassed of little versions of myself, but I look at myself in high school. I'm like, oh, look at how hard that kid was working. He was doing his damn best.
So cute.
Same throughout. But then I get to 5 years ago, which is just about, before the start of our YouTube channel. And or around the start of a YouTube channel. And that's the time right now that I'm really feeling like I have crystal clear vision on, but it still is close enough. It feels like me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's going to be a little squirmy watching it. I'm looking forward to it, but I really think I'm going to come across as oblivious.
Yeah.
And like,
I'm stoked. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
But then I'm just going to tease the episode after that because this one is going to be hella juicy. We are going to talk about Dave 2D.
Yeah.
I'm just going to come out and say it. We're going to talk about that.
Not even, is that the word? That is not the word I would use.
Juicy?
It's going
it's going to be tea probably for a lot of people because a lot of people are fascinated with the whole Dave 2D thing. And I think we haven't really talked about our experience with it too much, like dove in deep on this channel. And so I think that'll be really good and like it'll feel healthy. But I don't know. I think we're just going to have a broader conversation about cyberbullying on the internet and negativity and like what it does to you.
I think it's just going to be very honest. We're going to tell you guys what the hell is
weird.
up.
I'm getting like butterflies even just mentioning it. Like I know that I have so much like, I don't know. I've processed a lot of it, but I think it's still in there. I'm just saying I have lots of emotions about it. That's all.
Well, that'll be a wrap though. Let's wait on them.
Yeah.
Let's save them.
There.
Cheers. First time holding mics. Boop.
Boop. How'd we do, guys?
How we do. Thank y'all for watching. Maybe you enjoyed us rambling on. Maybe you didn't. Whatever. Hope you did.
If you did, you're probably still watching, and if you didn't, you're probably not watching.
Would love long comments, guys. I know we dove into juicy stuff, but like, if any of this connected with you, if it didn't connect with you, it didn't connect with you. And if it did, I know it probably connected with some real experience of yours. If even if you were triggered, throw it down. Let's hear why. You know what I mean? Like triggered. Look, anyone that gets mad at anybody else, you're always showing your own hand by getting mad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. If something we said made you mad, maybe that means it connected. I'm not saying we're right about it. I'm saying that like maybe
there's something you gotta think about yourself.
So throw it down there. Throw the dirt down and throw anything growth down. Whatever the hell.
Yeah.
We want to hear about y'all's life, and since we're getting deep, we might as well not have some shallow comments. We don't don't be dropping emojis down there. Drop some heat, some depth, some stories.
Yeah. We'll
tell me your best
comments.
Missionary story.
Ooh.
The danker, the better, please.
Ooh. I like that. We haven't really been responding to comments in the last few years or so, because like it was hard for me to respond to like anytime I saw a negative comment, it was really hard for me. But I think that we can safely dive into the comments. So hopefully we'll get to chat with you guys.
We'll see you guys down there.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you in the next video. Who knows what it'll be? We'll find out next time.
We'll be watching our old content. We'll see you then.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.